Hi, guys. So I wrote an essay about gender. And that's part of the reason I've been so quiet in the hospital is because I've been really, really introspective and focused on figuring out gender. I know I've been kind of all over the place with it, but I've come to a conclusion. This essay is, according to Google, or not Google, but Microsoft Office, 3,269 words. So it's going to be a longer video. But I'm going to read it now. It's called Gender in a Nutshell. The female gender stereotype is to be empathetic and to feel emotions. The typical female wants empathy, love, and understanding. They generally think with their hearts and are more expressive with what they say to others. Women are often open books to people they hold dear, and they use communication in relationships to feel valuable and purposeful. Women have soft edges and are seen as nurturers and are often looked to in emotional times for advice. Female traits are often viewed as a weakness if found in male-identifying people. The male gender stereotype is to be logical and calculating. The typical male wants solutions, results, and competency. They generally think things through as much as possible on their own and try to have solutions before approaching others with their thoughts. Men are often more closed off, even to the people they are close to, and they use communication only to gather information to formulate solutions to problems. Men have harder edges and are often looked to in times where concrete solutions are needed. Masculine traits are usually seen as cold if found in female-identifying people. These roles are opposites of each other for a very good reason, to establish balance in a relationship. They are complementary in nature and designed that way for a very good reason. I want to choose this moment to say that this is all relationships, no matter the sex of the people within the relationship. There has to be a division of these two stereotypes, even if someone of the male sex has the female stereotype or otherwise. The balance is what is key here, not the actual label itself. The label is only a tool used for concise communication. There cannot easily exist two male stereotypes or two female stereotypes within one relationship for it to truly be symbiotic. It throws the balance of the relationship off, and often the result is toxic or unhealthy. For ease of simplicity, I am going to use male and female to refer to the people of the aforementioned gender stereotype. I want to acknowledge now that this is only a majority case, and that, as with all things, there are exceptions to the rule. Next, I must distinguish that sex and gender are different. There are biologically 3 sexes that exist, and those are the biological and anatomical indicators of a person. It's in the DNA and in the appearance at birth. There is male, a person typically born with a penis. There is female, a person typically born with a vagina. And there is intersex, previously in history referred to as hermaphrodites. These persons have a complicated mix of biology that is far too intricate for me to get into here. I just need people to know they exist. Gender, on the other hand, is an identity. It is not something that a person intrinsically has. It is something that is born from within and from societal conditioning, and is assigned to a person, typically by others, in infancy. However, it is something that can and often does change, and can be very confusing and complicated. A gender identity does not always align with the sex of a person, and that is where things get messy, and communication gets truly difficult. It is hard to express to someone how you identify if it doesn't align with what you've been told your whole life is normal. And that is what this essay is for, to educate people so that they know that gender exploration is perfectly natural and normal, and even something that very much should be considered and reconciled by every person, if for no other reason than self-enlightenment. Also, understanding oneself is paramount in the endeavor of getting others to understand who one truly is and why they are that way. It is now that I will say I personally think gender is a fabrication of humanity and needs to be abolished from our way of thinking, however impossible of an idea that may seem to be. It isn't really helpful, except as a tool of understanding for the way people are. Psychologists have studied and generalized gender so thoroughly that it is instinct now for us to gender everything around us, and most of us have a pretty good idea in our heads of what makes something or someone male or female. And this gender assignment helps us keep those neat little boxes straight in our head so that we can communicate with each other effectively. For that reason, I think it is still necessary to use, especially in this particular case, no matter how much it personally bugs me. Gender, as it turns out, is not a binary thing, as history would have us believe, and that is something very important that people really need to realize. Gender is a wonderful and colorful spectrum with a large prismatic area that cannot be boxed into the categories of either male or female. Some people are both. Some are neither. Some switch between the two. It's a complex situation, to say the absolute least. And while I cannot begin to fathom the gender identity of others and how they came to the realization of what that identity is, I can identify my own journey through the gender spectrum and use that journey as a sort of way to communicate that complexity to others. And to let others know that this is what discovery of one's true gender identity is. A journey, complete with twists and turns and bumps and gaps. A journey that seems to come to an end before taking another turn and leading on for what seems like eternity. And you are allowed to change your mind as you learn and grow and self-reflect. For the majority of my life, as it is for most of the population, I have naively assumed myself to be cisgender, a person whose gender identity matches the sex they were assigned at birth. I have always just accepted that I was what I was assigned at birth, a female. It wasn't anything I'd ever even thought to give thought to. Not even when I hit puberty and became sexually active and began to explore my sexuality did gender ever enter the equation for me. I was a female, and that was enough for me. Liking both guys and girls didn't really do anything to influence my identity at the time. For a very long while, that was sufficient to me, despite the tomboyish traits I had displayed my whole life. It never occurred to me that the display of boyish tendencies could be a masculine side of my personality presenting itself. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I lived my life, feeling slightly discontented with things, but not really knowing why, and not having the knowledge required to even know how to question the discontent to pinpoint where it originated. College, as for most people, was a time of great enlightenment for me. I was focused on classes that were intellectual in nature, classes that made me think introspectively, something I always enjoyed doing. The exploration of myself began with a philosophy class that reminded me just how much I really do like to contemplate things and have answers for the ways I feel and think. It opened my mind up to wanting more than what I already had as far as wisdom was concerned, and it made me crave a more complete self-actualization than what I'd already achieved. In fact, upon reflection, I found I hardly knew a thing about myself, really. At least not any of the things that mattered. Then, that exploration bled over into the psychology classes I elected to take. While the introductory class in the abnormal psychology helped me understand many aspects of who I am, they didn't specifically lead me down the path of gender enlightenment. Specifically for this purpose, the human sexuality class I took is the one I need to mention here. In it, we covered the topic of gender, and how it is more a spectrum than a binary, and that got my mind absolutely reeling. Gender was a spectrum? Then where the hell did I fall? Was I really this average cis woman? Or was there more to it than that? Was there more to me than that? I absolutely needed to know, and was filled with a fiery passion to discover my true gender. So I did some reflecting, like a lot of reflecting. And my first conclusion was close to where I am now, but not quite right. I initially thought that I was perhaps more gender fluid, switching back and forth smoothly between the two binaries. I had days where I felt like I aligned more with the female stereotype, other days where I felt more like the masculine stereotype. And gender fluid was the closest term I could find to describing that realization, that I had tendencies of both stereotypes. And that fit for a minute, but I eventually thought maybe that was a cop-out, and I hadn't thought things through enough. Because if I was really honest with myself, I felt much more masculine than I did feminine most of the time. So did that mean I was actually a guy and not a girl, as I'd been raised to believe? Curious, I've tried switching my pronouns and donned a new masculine name within my family and friend group. I like the changes. I like being called male and by my new name of Sebastian, though there is objectively nothing wrong with the name my parents gave me. I like being able to feel comfortable presenting male, wearing male clothes, being more cavalier about things, letting body hair grow where it never had before. It also took away the pressure of being a woman, of having to be well-kept and well-groomed to gain any amount of respect. I've done both roles now, And objectively, being a female is a lot more work. I liked being able to be calculating and rational without people viewing me as being frigid or heartless. It was normal if I identified male. This was the point that I decided I must be transgender, the opposite gender stereotype of the sex I was assigned at birth. What else could explain how good it felt letting that masculine side shine through freely? What else could describe why I suddenly felt wrong being referred to as a woman? Sure, it was socially rough to come out as a trans male, but I've never really put much stock in the way others react to who I am as a person. As long as I keep my chosen pack of people, through thick and thin, I can manage the judgment of the rest of the world with relative ease. So, I've been living with the presented gender identity of a transgender male. And while it feels good in a lot of ways, something still feels off. Something isn't meshing quite right, and things aren't gelling the way I want them to. Something about saying I'm a boy still feels untrue, but saying I'm a girl feels untrue as well. So again, I find myself asking, what the hell am I? So my mind has recently spun again into yet another direction. I miss the female stuff. Like, deep in my soul, I want the freedom to be a female too. I want the physical presentation back on days when I feel that way. I want to be free to be emotional when I need to be, and nurturing and openly communicative. I am proud of who I was before all this gender stuff got super complicated. But gender fluid hadn't really fit. It wasn't that I switched between being one identity and another. It's that I was both, and either, or neither, all at the same damn time. A paradoxical enigma, if you will. So naturally, I've looked up a definition for the way I've been feeling, as I'm convinced transgender doesn't quite completely cover things for me, and neither does gender fluid. The term that comes closest to what my gender identity is shaping up to be is genderqueer. According to what I've read, a genderqueer person is one who does not particularly subscribe to conventional gender distinctions and can identify with neither, both, or a combination of male and female genders. It is a non-binary form of identification, and thus far, I like how it feels and how it sounds, and the freedom it allows me to just be myself in every moment of my life. And if that doesn't hit the nail on the head for how I should feel, there's so much about me that's male. I feel protective of the people close to me, and I like to be in control of my life. Plus, I'm a logical, rational, even-headed person, most of the time, who likes to find concise and efficient solutions to problems. I still like hearing he, him pronouns. I still wish to be called Sebastian, as it's more indicative of the person I am becoming, the person I was always meant to be, the truest version of myself that I can be. But on the flip side of that coin, there's so much about me that's female. The way I defer to people who I feel have more authority, my natural coyness, the way I like to groom myself and keep up my appearance, the intensely powerful emotions, the amount I rely on instinct, the way I read people, and how open I am about who I am and what I'm feeling. All of that seems more traditionally female. And I've noticed that hearing people still calling me a female doesn't bug me the way I thought it would. Because I didn't feel validated in this masculine part of who I was without shunning the female part at first. But why shun it if it's a viable part of who I am? So assuming I'm a female is all I've ever known. It's been a driving factor in everything that has led me to where I am today, to who I am today. As I said, I'm proud of that part of me, and it feels wrong to just sweep it under the rug because part of me is male. My core identity is both. My presentation style is both. I've been genuinely missing wearing female clothes when I feel like it. I've missed certain aspects of wearing makeup and heels. Doing so used to give me so much confidence, and I always felt so comfortable in that way. So why should I shy away from it now, just because it isn't what I want to do 24/7? And why does gender matter at all from another person's perspective in the first place? It's just a label socially constructed to put people into boxes that ultimately don't have any intrinsic meaning. So why make a big deal of it? If someone decides I'm female, awesome. If they think I'm a male, great. I don't care anymore. It has been plaguing me more than it has been making me happy. Every moment in my life is a stepping stone. Gender fluid led to transgender, which led to here, to genderqueer, to an acceptance that I am who I am, separate from gender completely. It's not important to my identity. The attributes that I hold as values are what's important. And those only have gender because society decided they do. And as far as I'm concerned, that isn't even a factor anymore. Again, I reiterate, I am both and I am neither. I am simply Sebastian, separate from the social constructs that I have decided don't impact the way I feel about myself or about others. Gender only matters insofar as it does to every person individually. That being said, I will still strive to respect and acknowledge the decided gender of others. It would be careless of me not to. But as for myself, male, female, androgen, or otherwise, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't matter to me. It's important now to acknowledge that other people still hold gender to be quite important and use it as a deciding factor in romantic relationships. Gender is a factor of sexual orientation, and many people are very adamant about their orientation. A hetero male might not like the part of me that is male. A hetero female might not like the part of me that is female. A gay male might not like the part of me that is female. A gay female might not like the part of me that is male. And the story goes on. For romantic relationships, for me, whichever part of my identity makes my partner feel most comfortable is what makes me happy. If they prefer me being more male, awesome. If they're more comfortable with my being a female partner, that's fine to me. To me, I am just me, and will continue being me regardless. I think I was using gender as like a defense mechanism for feeling misunderstood by people, including myself. So I latched on to the first thing that felt remotely right and came out to everyone. And I apologize now for any harm or discomfort that has caused with people I care about. Don't get me wrong, things have changed. I do not identify as a female anymore. But I don't identify as male either. Not in all ways. I am gender queer at the core. It fits with what makes me comfortable and happy and fulfilled. And I think that alone makes it okay. It hasn't been easy or comfortable looking at myself this closely, examining how I really feel about things and why. But I think it's a necessary part of getting as close to a self-actualized person as I can. And I've come to the realization that I don't owe anyone an explanation here. Every person's journey is a personal thing. If I chose to share mine with the world before I hit the end of it, I could not have known that at the time. And hopefully, people will continue to be supportive of my crazy personality, as they have been thus far. So, gender me as you see fit. My experience, which has been made evident, has been challenging and dynamic. It has shifted and changed. And now, it's time for the female part of me to give some unsolicited advice to whomever may hear this. Explore your gender. Even if you are certain you are who you have always claimed to be, explore the origin of why you feel that way. Get the understanding of yourself so you can share it with the people you are closest to. And no matter how exciting each new discovery is, use discretion in who you tell. Don't come out all at once like I did, only to find out that you didn't have the whole picture yet. That has made my social and personal life a bit messy, and it's a mess I don't want to have to clean up. And I wouldn't want somebody else to have to go through having to do it either. So to sum this all up, for people who may care about me personally, gender is complex, and more than anyone ever told you it was. Explore it. Learn as much as you can about it and yourself. You'll thank yourself when you get to where I am, comfortable with who you are, regardless of your identity and sex. Keep smiling.